The burgeoning Angevin Empire, forged by the strategic brilliance of Henry II and Eleanor, was a marvel of medieval statecraft, yet also a volatile entity constantly on the brink of internal rupture. Henry, a man of relentless energy and formidable intellect, was a monarch unlike any before him. He crisscrossed his vast domains almost ceaselessly, holding court, dispensing justice, and personally overseeing the administration of his lands. His reign saw the systematic centralization of royal authority, a pioneering effort to establish a uniform system of common law across England, and the development of the jury system, innovations that would profoundly shape legal traditions for centuries. He was known for his sharp mind, quick temper, a terrifying rage known as the Angevin Sild, and a pragmatic ruthlessness that often alienated those closest to him. Eleanor, in these early years, was not merely a decorative consort, but an indispensable partner. Her intrinsic understanding of the nuances of Aquitaine's culture and its fiercely independent nobility was vital in binding the duchy to the Plantagenet crown. She served as regent in England for significant periods during Henry's prolonged absences on the continent, demonstrating a firm grasp of governance and the ability to maintain order. This initial period was characterized by a genuine, if intensely ambitious, partnership. Their 8 children, a testament to Eleanor's renewed fertility, transformed the dynastic landscape. Each child represented a potential jewel in the Angevin crown, destined to rule a portion of the vast dominion or forge strategic alliances through marriage. Henry the young king, born in 1155, was designated as heir apparent, crowned co-king of England in 1170, a move unprecedented in English history, designed to secure a smooth succession, but ultimately a source of profound future conflict. Richard, born in 1157, a robust and charismatic figure, was invested with the Duchy of Aquitaine as his inheritance, destined to rule Eleanor's ancestral lands. Geoffrey, born in 1158, was slated to marry Constance, heiress of Brittany, thus extending Plantagenet influence over that strategically vital region. And John, the youngest, born in 1166, famously dubbed Lackland, due to his initial lack of substantial inheritance, would later become the infamous King John. The daughters, Matilda, Eleanor, and Joan, were powerful diplomatic pawns, married into the highest echelons of European royalty. Matilda to Henry the Lion of Saxony, Eleanor to Alfonso, the Eighth of Castile, and Joan to William II of Sicily, creating a vast network of alliances and further entrenching Plantagenet influence. Across the continent, beyond the political and administrative spheres, Eleanor's influence on the cultural landscape of the Angevin Empire was profound and enduring. She transformed the English and Norman courts, infusing them with the refined and sophisticated traditions of her native Aquitaine. Poitiers, her beloved ducal capital, flourished under her patronage, becoming a vibrant center of artistic and intellectual life. It was here that the ideals of courtly love, articulated by the troubadours, truly blossomed, influencing literature, poetry, and social customs across Europe. Figures like Bernard de Ventador, a renowned troubadour, found patronage and inspiration. At her court, Eleanor herself was known to be a highly cultivated woman, sponsoring chroniclers, poets, and musicians, fostering an environment where intellect and artistry were highly valued. Her presence elevated the cultural sophistication of the Plantagenet realm, making it a rival not just in military might, but also in cultural prestige. However, beneath this glittering facade of power and cultural splendor, fissures began to appear in the formidable partnership of Henry and Eleanor. Henry's relentless pursuit of power, his autocratic tendencies, and his notoriously public extramarital affairs, most notably with the celebrated beauty Rosamund Clifford, gradually eroded the foundations of their marriage. Eleanor, a woman of immense pride and independence, deeply resented Henry's philandering and his increasing disregard for her counsel. While their union had been founded on political expediency and mutual ambition, the personal bond deteriorated. Under the weight of Henry's infidelity and his reluctance to share true power, particularly with their ambitious son's Dot as the years progressed, Eleanor found herself increasingly sidelined from the inner workings of Henry's central administration. While she retained the dignity and status of queen, her direct political influence within England diminished as Henry increasingly relied on his own trusted male advisers. This shift, combined with the personal affronts, led to a growing estrangement. Eleanor began to spend more time in Aquitaine, nurturing her own court in Poitiers, which became a distinct cultural and political entity within the Angevin Empire, often operating semi-independently of Henry's direct control. Here, she cultivated her own network of vassals and pursued her own diplomatic initiatives, effectively establishing a power base separate from her husband's. This gradual but decisive withdrawal from Henry's immediate orbit was not merely a personal retreat. It was a strategic repositioning, born of frustration and a renewed determination to assert her own autonomy and, more critically, to secure the future of her sons, whom she believed Henry was deliberately holding back from their rightful inheritances and responsibilities. The seeds of a devastating family conflict were not just sown but actively watered, setting the stage for a period of unprecedented strife that would ultimately imprison the formidable queen. The culmination of these simmering tensions and Henry's increasingly autocratic rule manifested in the calamitous family conflict of 1173 to 1174, a widespread rebellion that threatened to tear the Angevin Empire apart. At its heart were Henry and Eleanor's ambitious sons, primarily Henry the young king, Richard, and Geoffrey, all chafing under their father's relentless grip and perceived unwillingness to grant them real power or independent authority over the lands he had nominally assigned to them. Henry II, despite crowning his eldest son, Henry the young king, as co-ruler in 1170, had denied him any true control, maintaining that his sons should remain dependent on his will for their every allowance and every decision. This was a direct contradiction to the feudal norms, where an heir was expected to be granted lands and resources commensurate with his status, allowing him to establish his own household and demonstrate his capacity for governance. The young king, charming but feckless, felt publicly humiliated and powerless, trapped in a gilded cage. Richard, proud and formidable, bristled at his father's constant interference in Aquitaine, which he saw as his rightful domain, and where his mother had carefully cultivated his authority. Geoffrey, the intellectual and cunning middle son, likewise felt overlooked and denied his due. Fueling this burgeoning fraternal resentment was Eleanor herself. Deeply embittered by Henry's infidelity, particularly his brazen affair with Rosamond Clifford, and marginalized from the core of his administration, she saw her son's grievances as an opportunity to reassert her own influence and secure her children's future, especially Richard's authority over Aquitaine. She openly encouraged their rebellion, providing them with counsel, financial support, and a moral legitimization that proved invaluable. Her Poitiers court became a rallying point for disaffected nobles, not just from Aquitaine, but from across the Angevin territories, who viewed Henry II's centralizing policies as an affront to their traditional feudal liberties. The King of France, Louis VII, Eleanor's former husband, ever eager to destabilize his formidable rival, eagerly seized upon this family discord, offering sanctuary and military backing to the rebellious princes, cunningly exploiting the internal cracks in the Angevin edifice. In March 1173, the storm finally broke. Henry the young king, incited by his mother and fueled by his own frustrations, fled to the French court and openly declared war on his father, demanding full control over Normandy, Anjou, and Maine. He was quickly joined by Richard and Geoffrey, and soon a vast coalition formed against Henry II. This formidable alliance included Louis VII of France, William the Lion of Scotland, Count Philip of Flanders, and a host of powerful Anglo-Norman and Aquitanian barons who resented Henry's strict justice and high taxes. The rebellion spread like wildfire, engulfing almost every corner of the Angevin realm. England faced invasion from Scotland and raids from Flanders. Normandy and Brittany were aflame. And Aquitaine, largely loyal to Eleanor and Richard, rose. In open revolt against Henry's direct appointees, Eleanor's role in this grand family betrayal was pivotal and direct. She actively traveled through Aquitaine, personally rallying support for her sons and leveraging her immense personal authority and popularity in her ancestral lands. She dispatched her agents across the continent, coordinating efforts with the French king and the other rebel leaders. It was a testament to her political astuteness and her enduring influence that she could orchestrate such a widespread uprising against one of Europe's most powerful monarchs. However, her direct involvement in the rebellion ultimately sealed her fate. As the conflict intensified, Henry II, a brilliant military strategist and a master of rapid deployment, moved decisively to crush the rebellion. He was merciless, swift, and utterly effective. Recognizing the imminent collapse of the rebellion in Aquitaine, Eleanor made a desperate attempt to flee her husband's retribution. She disguised herself in men's clothing and attempted to travel from Poitiers to the protection of Louis VII in Paris. However, her plan was thwarted. She was captured in November 1173 near the port of Barfleur in Normandy by Henry's forces. Her capture was a profound humiliation. A powerful queen caught, fleeing in disguise, a stark reversal of her once unassailable position. Henry II, though victorious, was deeply wounded by his family's betrayal, most acutely by Eleanor's prominent role. He immediately ordered her imprisonment. For the next 16 long years, from 1173 until Henry's death in 1189, Eleanor of Aquitaine, the once vibrant and free-spirited queen, was held under various forms of detention, primarily in England, moving between royal castles such as Winchester, Old Sarum, and Salisbury. This was not a harsh dungeon imprisonment, but rather a form of comfortable house arrest, befitting her royal status. She was allowed a retinue and limited visitors, but she was fundamentally a prisoner, deprived of her freedom of movement, and critically, her direct political power. Her letters were likely censored, her contacts restricted, and her every move monitored. That her prolonged absence had a significant impact on Aquitaine. Henry II established a direct administration over the duchy, effectively integrating it more tightly into his empire, a goal he had long pursued but which Eleanor had resisted. Yet, even in confinement, Eleanor remained a potent symbol and a potential threat. Her existence was a constant reminder of the unresolved tensions within the Plantagenet family and the lingering resentments of her loyal Aquitanian subjects. Henry could not simply dispose of her. She was the mother of his children, a queen in her own right, and an annulment would delegitimize his heirs. Thus, she remained a royal pawn, a queen in gilded captivity, a constant shadow over Henry's reign. During her imprisonment, the family drama continued to unfold with tragic intensity. Henry the young king, despite being reconciled with his father, chafed at his continued lack of power and once again rebelled, dying tragically of dysentery in 1183 during his last skirmish. His death was a devastating blow to Henry II, and even in captivity to Eleanor, who grieved for her firstborn son. Geoffrey, the wily third son, met his end in a jousting tournament in Paris in 1186. With their deaths, the ambitious Richard, Eleanor's favorite and perhaps most formidable son, became the undisputed heir to the Angevin Empire. As the years of Eleanor's imprisonment stretched on, Henry II himself began to decline, worn out by incessant travel, political struggles, and the constant rebellions of his surviving sons. Richard, ever restless and ambitious, began to ally himself with the new, increasingly formidable King of France, Philip II Augustus, against his aging father. The tables were turning. The very sons Eleanor had championed from her captivity were now systematically dismantling their father's power. Her long years of confinement, though physically restrictive, paradoxically strengthened her mystique and her hold over Richard's loyalty. She became a symbol of Plantagenet suffering, a powerful figure awaiting her release to guide her favorite son to his destiny. Her release, when it finally came, would mark a new and arguably the most influential chapter of her extraordinary life as she emerged from the shadows of imprisonment to once again shape the destiny of a kingdom. The long, agonizing period of Eleanor's confinement came to an abrupt and dramatic end not long before, and definitively with the death of her estranged husband, Henry II. The last years of Henry's reign were a bitter, drawn-out tragedy, consumed by relentless conflict with his youngest, most formidable surviving son, Richard, and the increasingly ambitious King Philip II Augustus of France. Richard, fiercely independent and a brilliant military commander in his own right, had finally abandoned all pretense of reconciliation with his aging father. Instead, he forged an unholy alliance with Philip Augustus, relentlessly harrying Henry's continental domains. The once mighty Plantagenet king, exhausted by decades of relentless warfare, the treachery of his sons, and the physical toll of his peripatetic rule, was a shadow of his former self. His final military campaigns were marked by defeats and betrayals, culminating in a devastating truce signed at Azay-le-Rideau in July 1189, where Henry was forced to concede to all of Richard's demands. It was during this final, humiliating capitulation that Henry was shown a list of those who had sided against him. At the top was the name of his beloved youngest son, John. This final betrayal broke the old king's spirit. Henry II died just days later, on July 6, 1189, at Chinon Castle, utterly defeated and abandoned by all but a few loyal retainers. For Eleanor, the news of Henry's death must have been fraught with complex emotions. 16 years of gilded imprisonment had ended. Whether she was symbolically released by Henry himself shortly before his death as a gesture of reconciliation, or a final pragmatic recognition of her importance, or immediately upon his demise, she was free. The moment Henry's breath left his body, Eleanor of Aquitaine, at the remarkable age of 67, was not merely liberated. She was instantly catapulted back into the epicenter of European power. Her status as Queen Mother to the new monarch, and the sole surviving parent of the Plantagenet line, afforded her an unparalleled authority. Richard, now King of England, Duke of Normandy, Duke of Aquitaine, and Count of Anjou, inherited an empire vast but fractured, ripe for internal dissent and external predation. His first priority was to secure his succession, and for this he relied heavily on his mother. Eleanor, demonstrating her legendary vigor and political acumen even in old age, wasted no time. She traveled from Chinon to England with remarkable speed, acting as Richard's de facto regent and plenipotentiary even before his arrival. She issued royal writs, received oaths of fealty from key magnates, and oversaw the release of prisoners incarcerated by Henry II, effectively clearing the path for her son's uncontested coronation. She also began the delicate process of reconciling the old king's loyalists with Richard, a crucial task in consolidating the realm. Her presence offered legitimacy and stability, a bridge between the turbulent reign of Henry II and the promising, albeit uncertain, future under Richard. Richard I, forever known as Richard the Lionheart, was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey on September 3, 1189, a ceremony of immense pomp and significance. Eleanor was prominently present, her vindication complete. Her son, recognizing her unparalleled experience and loyalty, entrusted her with profound responsibilities. Richard's heart, however, was set not on governing his vast English domains, but on reclaiming the Holy Land. The call for the Third Crusade had resonated deeply with him, and he immediately set about raising the immense funds required for such an undertaking. This meant selling off crown lands, offices, and even titles, often to the highest bidder, a pragmatic if unpopular strategy to finance his grand religious and military ambition. As Richard prepared to embark on this epic journey, Eleanor became the de facto ruler of the Angevin Empire. She was formally designated as the primary regent in England, effectively holding the reins of power while her son was away. This was an unprecedented role for a queen mother, signifying Richard's absolute trust in her abilities and her unwavering loyalty. Her court, particularly in Westminster, became the true seat of power. Her responsibilities were immense and complex, maintaining peace and order across a vast, often rebellious realm, managing the royal treasury and ensuring the continued flow of funds to Richard's crusading army, arbitrating disputes among the barons, and perhaps most crucially, keeping her youngest son, John Lackland, in check. John, always ambitious and often devious, saw his brother's absence as a golden opportunity to seize power. He immediately began to scheme, forging alliances with disgruntled nobles and, most dangerously, with King Philip II Augustus of France, who had returned from the crusade early, eager to exploit Richard's prolonged absence and John's opportunism to chip away at the Angevin Empire. Eleanor, with her deep understanding of political intrigue and her network of loyalists, was constantly vigilant. She effectively thwarted John's early attempts to undermine Richard's authority, maintaining a firm hand and skillfully leveraging the legal and administrative machinery of the English government. She was instrumental in upholding the peace and ensuring that England remained a stable base of support for Richard's distant campaigns. Her diplomatic prowess was put to the test, not only in domestic affairs, but also in the delicate balance of international relations. She corresponded with various European rulers, ensuring diplomatic channels remained open and countering any attempts by Philip Augustus to isolate Richard. She was the crucial link between the crusading king and his vast European possessions, managing intelligence, forwarding dispatches, and making executive decisions that impacted the fate of his armies in the East. The logistical and financial demands of the crusade were staggering, and Eleanor tirelessly worked to gather and transmit resources, demonstrating an extraordinary capacity for organization and leadership. Richard's crusade, while initially successful in some engagements, ultimately failed to recapture Jerusalem. More importantly, his return journey became a nightmare. In late 1192, on making his way back to England, Richard was captured near Vienna by Leopold V, Duke of Austria, whom he had offended during the crusade. Leopold, a vassal of the Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI, subsequently handed Richard over to the emperor, who saw an opportunity to extract an enormous ransom. The news of Richard's capture, which reached England in the winter of 1192 to 1193, sent shockwaves across Europe and plunged the Angevin Empire into its most perilous crisis yet. It was a moment of profound despair, but for Eleanor, it also ignited an extraordinary display of her unyielding will and unparalleled diplomatic skill. Her greatest test, and arguably her most iconic act of statesmanship, was about to begin: the arduous, relentless campaign to secure the release of her beloved son from imperial captivity. The news of Richard's capture was a devastating blow to the Angevin realm, threatening to unravel everything Henry II and Eleanor had built. However, for Eleanor herself, it was a call to action, an activation of every ounce of her formidable political will, and a demonstration of maternal devotion that transcended the practicalities of medieval statecraft. While King John, ever the opportunist, immediately began to conspire with Philip Augustus to seize the throne, Eleanor, now in her early 70s, rose to the challenge with a vigor that belied her age. Her loyalty to Richard was absolute, and she understood that his very life and the integrity of the Angevin Empire hinged on his swift release. Her immediate response was to consolidate power and counteract John's treacherous machinations. Eleanor moved decisively, leveraging her authority as Queen Mother and the established regent. She issued strong decrees, rallied loyal magnates, and worked tirelessly to preserve the peace in England, preventing John from gaining a decisive foothold. She meticulously managed the royal treasury, ensuring that crown resources were not squandered or diverted by John's factions. Her presence in England was a powerful deterrent to widespread rebellion, her gravitas lending stability in a moment of extreme vulnerability. She was the unwavering anchor in a storm of uncertainty, making it clear to all that Richard, not John, was the legitimate king and that his return was paramount. The ransom demanded by the Holy Roman, Emperor Henry VI, was astronomical: 150,000 marks of silver, an amount equivalent to twice the annual revenue of the English crown, making it the largest royal ransom ever demanded in medieval Europe. This colossal sum was not merely a payment. It was designed to cripple the Angevin Empire financially, diminishing its power and making it vulnerable to its enemies. Faced with this unprecedented demand, Eleanor embarked on a truly extraordinary mission. She took personal charge of raising the ransom, overseeing an empire-wide fundraising campaign that was unprecedented in its scope and efficiency. Every stratum of society was tapped. Land taxes were imposed, church plate was melted down, feudal aids were levied, and a special Saladin tithe was reinstated, forcing even commoners to contribute not content to simply delegate. Eleanor personally undertook the perilous journey to Germany in the winter of 1193, an astonishing feat for a woman of her age. Her objective was twofold: to negotiate directly with Emperor Henry VI, and to be present for the formal handover of the ransom and Richard's release. Her journey itself was a testament to her determination, braving treacherous winter conditions and the inherent dangers of medieval travel across vast distances. When she arrived, she met with the emperor and engaged in protracted, often tense, negotiations, leveraging her diplomatic experience and personal charm to secure the best possible terms for her son's freedom. Her presence at the imperial court was crucial. It signified the solemnity of the agreement and demonstrated the Plantagenet commitment to fulfilling the massive ransom. On February 4th, 1194, at the Diet of Mainz, Eleanor witnessed the formal release of her son, Richard, an emotional and historic moment. She stood surety for any outstanding portion of the ransom, pledging her own lands and credit if necessary. It was a powerful symbolic act, signifying her complete dedication to his cause. The long years of imprisonment, the vast ransom, and the constant threat of John's usurpation were finally overcome through her relentless efforts. This moment cemented her legendary status, proving her not only as a formidable politician, but as an indomitable force driven by an almost mythical maternal love. Upon Richard's release, Eleanor personally accompanied him back to England, ensuring his safe passage and a triumphant return. Her presence during his second coronation in Winchester on April 17, 1194, was not just ceremonial. It was a deeply symbolic act of restoration and legitimacy. This second coronation was designed to reaffirm Richard's kingship after his captivity, and to decisively counter any claims John might have made during his absence. Eleanor stood prominently beside him, a visual testament to her role in his survival and restoration, sharing in his triumph. However, the immediate aftermath of Richard's return was not a peaceful one. He had to deal with the fallout of John's treachery. John, having openly allied with Philip Augustus and attempted to seize the throne, fled to France. Richard, guided by Eleanor's counsel, demonstrated a surprising degree of leniency towards his younger brother, largely at Eleanor's insistence. She had always sought to reconcile her sons, despite their internecine conflicts, understanding the importance of family unity for the survival of the Angevin dynasty. Her influence here was critical. She mediated between the brothers, persuading Richard to forgive John, a decision that would have long-term consequences for the English throne. With Richard firmly back on his throne, Eleanor, now in her 70s, did not retreat into quiet retirement. Instead, she remained a vital and active presence in his court, while Richard dedicated the remainder of his reign to recovering the territories in France, lost to Philip Augustus during his captivity, and shoring up the Angevin defenses. Eleanor continued to play a crucial advisory role. She was a constant source of counsel, particularly on matters pertaining to Aquitaine, her ancestral duchy, where her authority remained supreme. She acted as a trusted emissary, engaging in sensitive diplomatic missions on Richard's behalf. Her experience, her network of contacts, and her legendary reputation made her an invaluable asset to her son, especially as he focused primarily on his continental campaigns. Perhaps one of her most significant diplomatic acts during this period was orchestrating the marriage of her youngest daughter, Joan, to Raymond VI of Toulouse in 1196. This was a critical alliance designed to secure the southern flank of Aquitaine and counter French influence in the region. Eleanor personally oversaw the negotiations, demonstrating her unwavering commitment to the strategic interests of her family and her duchy. She also continued to exercise her independent authority in Aquitaine, issuing charters, adjudicating disputes, and maintaining the cultural vibrancy of her court. She was not merely a queen dowager, but a powerful, active duchess, a co-ruler in all but name, her political instincts as sharp as ever, ensuring the continuity and stability of her beloved Aquitaine within the larger, often tumultuous, Angevin construct. Her active involvement in governance and diplomacy continued unabated, ensuring that the legacy of her leadership would extend beyond mere patronage, solidifying her reputation as one of medieval Europe's most politically astute and enduring figures. The stage was now set for the final, and perhaps most challenging, chapter of her life, guiding the Angevin Empire through the tumultuous reign of her difficult youngest son. The unexpected death of Richard, the Lionheart, in April 1199 marked a devastating turning point for the Angevin Empire and thrust Eleanor, now in her late 70s, into yet another critical regency. Richard, known for his military prowess and chivalry, met an inglorious end, struck by a crossbow bolt while besieging a minor castle, Chalas-Chabrol, in Limousin. His death, without a legitimate heir, though he did have an illegitimate son, Philip of Cognac, immediately ignited a succession crisis that threatened to tear the Angevin lands apart. The traditional custom of primogeniture, which would have favored Arthur of Brittany, the son of Richard's deceased younger brother Geoffrey, clashed directly with the principle of proximity of blood, which favored the youngest surviving brother, John. Eleanor's response was swift, decisive, and crucial for the stability of the realm. Despite Arthur's legitimate claim and the support he garnered in Brittany, Anjou, Maine, and Touraine, Eleanor threw her full, unwavering support behind her youngest and arguably most problematic son, John. This decision, though seemingly counterintuitive given John's past treachery, was a calculated move born of strategic necessity and a deep understanding of the political landscape. Eleanor knew John intimately. She understood his flaws, but also recognized his administrative capabilities and his readiness to rule. Arthur, a mere boy of 12, was an unknown quantity, a child whose regency would likely be exploited by ambitious French and Breton nobles, potentially fracturing the Angevin Empire beyond repair. Furthermore, Eleanor held significant feudal rights over Aquitaine, and as her direct descendant, John offered the most stable and amenable route for her to maintain influence over her ancestral lands. She was, in essence, choosing the devil. She knew over an uncertain and potentially more dangerous alternative. Eleanor immediately sprang into action. She secured John's succession in England with remarkable speed, leveraging her immense prestige and the network of loyal magnates she had cultivated throughout her long life. She accompanied John on a triumphant tour of his continental domains, personally presenting him to the key vassals of Normandy, Maine, Anjou, and Touraine. More crucially, she ensured his acceptance as Duke of Aquitaine, where her personal authority was absolute. It was a testament to her political sway that she was able to navigate this treacherous succession with such effectiveness, essentially acting as John's chief political architect and enabler in his early reign. Her intervention was undeniably the primary reason John secured the throne against Arthur's competing claim. The early years of John's reign were fraught with peril, dominated by the relentless machinations of King Philip II Augustus of France, who continued to chip away at the Angevin territories. John, despite his administrative competence, proved to be an erratic and often untrustworthy ruler, alienating many of his vassals. Eleanor, despite her age, remained his most steadfast and indispensable ally. She continued to act as his most trusted advisor, particularly on matters concerning Aquitaine and Anglo-French relations. Her diplomatic skills were frequently deployed on his behalf. One of her most famous and challenging diplomatic missions in this period occurred in 1200. At the advanced age of 78, Eleanor undertook a perilous journey across the Pyrenees mountains to escort her granddaughter, Blanche of Castile, from the court of her daughter Eleanor, Queen of Castile. This arduous journey was for the purpose of Blanche's marriage to Louis, the eldest son and heir of Philip Augustus of France. This marriage was a cornerstone of the Treaty of the Gaulet, a precarious peace treaty between John and Philip, designed to temporarily resolve the long-standing territorial disputes between England and France. Eleanor's personal involvement in this high-stakes diplomatic mission underscored her continuing importance on the European stage. Her presence lent gravitas and ensured the successful execution of the treaty, solidifying a fragile peace and demonstrating her enduring commitment to the Angevin cause, even if it meant personally delivering a pawn into the hands of a long-standing rival. Eleanor's wisdom and foresight often stood in stark contrast to John's impetuous decisions. Her counsel was invaluable in navigating the treacherous political waters of the early 13th century. She tirelessly worked to maintain the loyalty of the Aquitanian nobility, many of whom were wavering in their allegiance to the increasingly unpopular King John. She understood the intricacies of feudal relationships better than almost anyone, having cultivated these ties for decades. Her presence in Aquitaine served as a vital bulwark against French expansion and internal rebellion. As the years passed, Eleanor's physical health began to decline, forcing her to withdraw from the relentless pace of active politics. She spent her final years primarily at the Abbey of Fontevraud, a prestigious monastic complex where her husband Henry II and her favorite son Richard were also buried. Even in semi-retirement, her counsel was still sought by John and her mere existence continued to be a powerful symbol of legitimacy and continuity for the Plantagenet dynasty. She dedicated herself to religious contemplation and charitable works, while also overseeing the spiritual welfare of the abbey, a place that held deep personal significance for her as the final resting place of her immediate family. Her death, on April 1, 1204, at the age of 82, was a monumental event. She was buried at Fontevraud Abbey alongside Henry and Richard, her effigy depicting her calmly reading a book, a symbol of her renowned intellect. Her death removed the last great figure of the first generation of the Angevin Empire, and, crucially, deprived King John of his most loyal and effective supporter. Without her steadying hand, John's reign rapidly spiraled into disaster. Within months of her passing, Philip Augustus capitalized on her absence and John's increasing unpopularity and ineptitude. Normandy, the ancestral heartland of the Plantagenets, fell to the French in the summer of 1204, quickly followed by Anjou, Maine, and Touraine. The vast Angevin Empire, painstakingly built by Henry II, and so diligently preserved by Eleanor, crumbled with astonishing speed, reducing the English crown's continental holdings to a mere sliver of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine's life had spanned nearly a century, witnessing and shaping an era of profound change. From a powerful duchess and twice-crowned queen to a prisoner and finally a revered queen mother and regent. Her journey was an epic saga of resilience, intelligence, and unyielding will. Her impact on medieval politics, culture, and even the court, very fabric of European history, was unparalleled. Her legacy extends beyond her remarkable achievements. It lies in her enduring image as a woman who defied the constraints of her time, asserting her agency in a world designed to limit female power. She was not merely a passive figure in history, but an active, driving force, proving that an extraordinary woman could not only survive, but thrive and dominate in the male-dominated arena of medieval power. Her passing marked the true end of an era, leaving behind a world irrevocably altered by her audacious life. Eleanor of Aquitaine's death in 1204, while marking the end of an individual life, also symbolized the definitive close of the Angevin Empire's golden age and the beginning of a new tumultuous chapter for the English monarchy. Her passing left a colossal void in the political landscape of Western Europe, a void that King John, her last surviving son, proved utterly incapable of filling. Her unwavering support and political acumen had been the critical bedrock on which John's early reign was built, and without her, his inherent flaws, his capriciousness, his untrustworthiness, and his fundamental lack of a strong feudal following were laid bare for all to see. The fall of Normandy, the ancestral heartland of the Plantagenets, to Philip Augustus within months of Eleanor's death was not merely a military defeat. It was a profound psychological and symbolic blow, severing the English crown's direct ties to its continental patrimony and marking the irreversible decline of the once sprawling Angevin dominion. While her direct political involvement ceased with her death, Eleanor's legacy permeated the very fabric of the Angevin Empire's remaining structures and, crucially, continued to influence the complex relationship between England and Aquitaine. Her lifetime had cemented Aquitaine's unique identity within the broader Plantagenet sphere. Unlike Normandy or Anjou, which were direct conquests or inherited lands, Aquitaine had come to the English crown through Eleanor as her personal inheritance. She had nurtured its distinct culture, protected its customs, and fiercely championed its autonomy within the larger empire. This legacy of a semi-independent, culturally vibrant Aquitaine, still loyal to the English crown, but through a different, historical lens, would persist for centuries, often acting as a significant theater of Anglo-French conflict, famously culminating in the 100 Years' War. Even without her physical presence, her spirit of independence and her strategic importance to the English continued to shape the region's destiny. Beyond the political realm, Eleanor's profound and lasting impact on medieval European culture cannot be overstated. Her court at Poitiers, during her years as Duchess of Aquitaine and later, particularly during her periods of semi-retirement from Henry II's direct oversight, became a crucible of intellectual and artistic ferment. It was arguably the foremost center for the development of courtly love, a concept that fundamentally redefined romantic relationships and chivalric ideals throughout the High Middle Ages. The troubadours, lyrical poets from the south of France, found enthusiastic patronage and inspiration at her court. They sang of refined love, chivalry, and emotional complexity, narratives that deeply influenced the nascent literary traditions across Europe. Figures like Chrétien de Troyes, often considered the father of Arthurian romance, were indirectly influenced by these courtly ideals, disseminating them further into mainstream European literature. Eleanor's court provided a space where women, particularly noble women, had greater intellectual and social freedom than was typical for the era. This patronage fostered a sophisticated environment that encouraged literacy, artistic expression, and intellectual discourse, challenging the more austere, monastic-influenced culture of Northern Europe. Eleanor also served as a powerful role model, a real-life embodiment of female agency and influence in a period when women, regardless of their noble status, were largely expected to be subservient. Her ability to navigate two complex royal marriages, to wield significant political power, to lead armies, at least symbolically, to embark on a crusade, to endure long imprisonment, and then to return to active political life in her old age, all demonstrated an extraordinary force of will and an astute understanding of power dynamics. She defied simple categorization, refusing to be confined by the restrictive gender norms of her time. Her legend grew even in her lifetime, and after her death, she continued to be a subject of fascination and admiration, often portrayed as a powerful, intelligent, and sometimes manipulative figure, embodying both the ideals and the dangers of female ambition. Her influence extended to her children and grandchildren, shaping the character of the subsequent generations of European monarchs. Richard the Lionheart inherited her charisma, her love of Aquitaine, and her martial spirit. Her daughters, such as Eleanor, Queen of Castile, and Joan, Queen of Sicily, carried her diplomatic acumen and formidable personalities into other European courts, extending her family's influence across the continent. Her granddaughter, Blanche of Castile, whom Eleanor personally escorted to France, would become one of the most powerful and effective regents in French history, ruling for her son Louis IX, Saint Louis, a testament to the strong female lineage that Eleanor had established. The very presence of such strong, independent women in positions of power throughout the 13th century can, in part, be traced back to Eleanor's groundbreaking precedent. Furthermore, Eleanor's life directly contributed to the geopolitical struggles that would define Anglo-French relations for centuries. Her marriage to Henry II, which brought Aquitaine into the Plantagenet fold, was the direct catalyst for the Angevin Empire and the subsequent century-long rivalry with the Capetian kings of France. The loss of Normandy and Anjou under John, while leaving a reduced continental footprint, did not diminish the strategic importance of Aquitaine, which remained a key point of contention. The desire to maintain, defend, or reclaim these continental possessions would fuel repeated conflicts, culminating in the Hundred Years' War, 1337 to 1453, a conflict whose very roots can be found in the territorial amalgam created by Eleanor's second marriage. Her decisions, personal and political, laid the groundwork for centuries of warfare, trade disputes, and cultural exchange between England and France, irrevocably intertwining their destinies. Even in death, Eleanor's shadow loomed large over the dynastic struggles and territorial ambitions of the European powers. Her story thus transcends that of a mere medieval queen. It is a foundational narrative in the shaping of modern European national identities and geopolitical realities. Her multifaceted legacy ensured that she would not be forgotten, her life becoming a rich source of inspiration and debate for historians, writers, and artists for generations to come. Eleanor's enduring legacy is deeply rooted in her unprecedented exercise of power and autonomy in a patriarchal age, a feat that continues to fascinate and inspire. Medieval society was rigidly hierarchical, with women typically relegated to domestic spheres, their political influence almost entirely indirect, exercised through male relatives. Yet, Eleanor defied these constraints repeatedly and demonstrably. She was not content to be a mere consort or a silent breadbearer for kings. From her inherited Duchy of Aquitaine, where she ruled in her own right as a powerful feudal lord, to her two tumultuous marriages to the kings of France and England, and finally to her remarkable resurgence as regent and queen mother, Eleanor, continuously asserted her agency, her ability to navigate, and often manipulate, the complex legal and feudal systems of her time to her advantage, showcases an extraordinary intellect and an iron will. She understood the intricacies of succession, the leverage of vast landholdings, and the persuasive power of personal charisma. Her life stands as a powerful counter-narrative to the prevailing assumptions about female powerlessness in the Middle Ages dot beyond her individual achievements. Eleanor's patronage of culture had a transformative effect on the very fabric of European thought and artistic expression. Her court was not just a political hub, but a vibrant intellectual salon, a court of love, where the sophisticated ideals of the troubadour tradition were nurtured and disseminated. This intellectual environment fostered an explosion of lyrical poetry, romantic literature, and new concepts of chivalry and courtly love that would ripple across the continent. These ideals, emphasizing refinement, courtesy, and the ennobling power of romantic affection, often outside the bounds of marriage, were a radical departure from earlier, more martial and religious literary traditions. They profoundly influenced vernacular literature, laying the groundwork for epic romances and chivalric narratives that defined the high medieval period and beyond. The shift from Latin-centric scholarship to vernacular literature was also subtly, but significantly, advanced by her court's embrace of French and Occitan as languages of high culture and intellectual discourse. Eleanor fostered an atmosphere where wit, erudition, and artistic talent were highly valued, attracting some of the era's most talented minds to her service and creating a powerful cultural counterweight to the more ascetic intellectual centers of the North. Furthermore, Eleanor's strategic use of marriage as a political tool, both for herself and for her children, had far-reaching consequences for the dynastic landscape of Europe. Her first marriage to Louis VII of France briefly united Aquitaine with the Capetian crown, only for their annulment to unleash the duchy into the hands of Henry Plantagenet. This second marriage created the vast Angevin Empire, an entity that fundamentally altered the balance of power, encircling the French king and setting the stage for centuries of Anglo-French conflict. Her role in arranging the marriages of her children and grandchildren, such as Matilda to Henry the Lion of Saxony, Eleanor to Alfonso VIII of Castile, and Blanche of Castile to Louis VIII of France, forged a vast network of alliances and familial ties that extended Plantagenet influence across Germany, the Iberian Peninsula, and critically, into the heart of the French royal family itself. These marriages were not merely personal unions. They were geopolitical chess moves, designed to secure her dynasty's power and influence, creating a complex web of familial obligations and rivalries that played out on the grand stage of European politics for generations. The enduring mystery and allure surrounding Eleanor's personality have also contributed significantly to her lasting fame. She was a figure of immense contrasts, devout yet worldly, politically astute yet emotionally tempestuous, capable of both fierce loyalty and cunning manipulation. Chroniclers of her time often struggled to reconcile these facets, portraying her variously as a magnificent queen, a seductive temptress, a formidable matriarch, or a dangerous schemer. Her alleged affair with Raymond of Poitiers during the Second Crusade, her active role in the rebellion against Henry II, and her later unwavering support for Richard and John all highlight a woman who operated outside conventional norms and whose motivations were often complex and deeply personal. This ambiguity, far from diminishing her, has only added to her mystique, inviting endless interpretation and reinterpretation by historians, writers, and artists across centuries. She defies easy categorization, making her a perennially compelling subject for study and popular fascination. Finally, Eleanor's life serves as a powerful historical pivot, standing at the cusp of a changing Europe. She lived through a period of immense transition, witnessing the consolidation of royal power, the rise of powerful nation-states, the flowering of Gothic architecture, and the intellectual shifts that characterized the High Middle Ages. Her active participation in these transformations, rather than being a passive observer, marks her as a central figure in understanding the forces that shaped Western civilization. Her journey from the liberal courts of Aquitaine to the austere Capetian court, then to the dynamic Angevin Empire, and finally to her final resting place at Fontevraud Abbey, encapsulates the shifting political, social, and cultural landscapes of the 12th and early 13th centuries. Her influence was not merely felt during her lifetime, but continued to resonate through the actions of her descendants and the geopolitical structures she helped to forge. She left an indelible mark on medieval Europe, her audacious life ensuring that she would remain one of history's most compelling and influential women. Her story is a testament to the fact that even within the most restrictive historical contexts, individuals of extraordinary will can transcend expectations and leave a legacy that echoes through the ages. The tangible and intangible legacies of Eleanor of Aquitaine are so interwoven into the fabric of medieval European history that it is impossible to fully comprehend the era without acknowledging her pervasive influence. Her physical presence spanned nearly a century, from around 1122 to 1204, a period of monumental change that saw the shift from fragmented feudalism to more centralized monarchies, the flowering of Gothic architecture, the crusades, and profound intellectual and social transformations. Eleanor was not merely a witness to these changes. She was an active participant and, in many instances, a catalyst for them. Her unique position as a reigning duchess, twice a queen consort, and then a powerful queen dowager and regent, provided her with an unparalleled platform from which to exert influence across multiple kingdoms and generations. Her very existence challenged the prevailing gender norms, demonstrating that a woman could not only inherit and govern vast territories, but also play a direct, decisive role in the highest echelons of international politics and dynastic maneuvering. Contributions to legal and administrative development, though often overshadowed by her personal dramas, were significant. As Duchess of Aquitaine, she maintained and enhanced the sophisticated legal and administrative structures of her duchy, which often had more advanced forms of governance than some of the northern European kingdoms. When she served as regent in England during Henry II's and later Richard I's absences, she was directly involved in the practical administration of the kingdom, hearing petitions, issuing writs, and maintaining royal justice. This direct experience in governance, honed over decades, made her an invaluable advisor to her sons, particularly in managing the diverse customs and often rebellious nobilities of their sprawling Angevin empire. Her pragmatic approach to governance, coupled with her deep understanding of feudal law and the intricacies of vassalage, provided a stable hand at the helm during turbulent periods, most notably during Richard's long captivity when she held the realm together in the face of John's treachery. The impact of her patronage on the cultural landscape, particularly in the south of France, resonated far beyond Aquitaine. The concept of courtly love, often associated with her court, was not merely a literary trope, but a social phenomenon that influenced the behavior, ideals, and artistic expressions of the aristocracy across Europe. It fostered a more refined and courteous society, elevating the status of women in courtly life and promoting chivalric virtues beyond mere military prowess. The troubadours, whose lyrical poetry celebrated these ideals, directly shaped the nascent vernacular literatures of France, England, and Germany, laying the groundwork for epic romances and chivalric tales that would captivate audiences for centuries. Her court was a beacon of sophistication and intellectual freedom, a place where secular arts flourished alongside religious devotion, contributing to a more diverse and nuanced cultural identity for the Angevin realm. The very presence of a powerful, intellectually curious queen who openly patronized such arts sent a clear message about the value of learning and artistic expression, encouraging a flourishing of creativity that set the Angevin courts apart. Dynastic connections were perhaps her most far-reaching and enduring legacy. Through her children and grandchildren, Eleanor became the matriarch of an astonishing network of European royalty. Her children included two kings of England, Richard I and John, a Duchess of Saxony, a Queen of Castile, and a Queen of Sicily. Her grandchildren included King Louis VIII of France, through Blanche of Castile, Saint Louis IX of France, and Ferdinand III of Castile. This sprawling family tree meant that her bloodline flowed through many of the most powerful ruling houses of Europe for generations, directly influencing successions, alliances, and conflicts. The political decisions she made regarding her children's marriages were not short-term solutions, but long-term, strategic investments that paid dividends for centuries, creating a complex web of familial obligations and rivalries that played out on the grand stage of European politics. Her role in bringing Blanche of Castile to France, for instance, had a profound impact on the future of the French monarchy, as Blanche proved to be an exceptionally capable regent for her son Louis IX, a period of great stability and growth for France. Furthermore, Eleanor's life serves as a powerful illustration of the inherent tension and rivalry between England and France throughout the High and Late Middle Ages. Her divorce from Louis VII and subsequent marriage to Henry Plantagenet directly brought the vast territories of Aquitaine into the English orbit, creating the Angevin Empire that overshadowed the French crown. This fundamental imbalance of power ignited a continuous struggle for dominance, punctuated by periods of open warfare, which would ultimately culminate in the 100 Years' War. Eleanor's personal and political choices effectively laid the strategic groundwork for this prolonged conflict, making her an accidental, yet pivotal, figure in the shaping of modern Anglo-French relations. The very notion of an English claim to significant continental territories, which would drive centuries of warfare, finds its origin squarely in Eleanor's inheritance and her second marriage. Even in her final years, Eleanor's influence persisted. Her passing in 1204 coincided almost exactly with the loss of Normandy and other key continental possessions by King John, an event often seen as the true end of the first iteration of the Angevin Empire. Her absence deprived John of his most astute and loyal advisor, and the immediate collapse of the Continental Empire in her wake underscores just how crucial her strategic counsel and unwavering support had been. Her life and death marked a profound turning point, signifying the end of an era defined by her towering presence. Historians continue to scrutinize her motives, her alliances, and her decisions, recognizing in her not merely a medieval queen, but a foundational figure in the development of European political systems, cultural movements, and dynastic histories. Eleanor of Aquitaine remains an archetype of powerful womanhood, a testament to resilience, intellect, and sheer force of will in a world that often sought to deny women their rightful place in the grand narrative of history. Her story transcends the details of her biography, becoming a compelling symbol of female agency and an enduring source of fascination. The narrative of Eleanor of Aquitaine's life is not merely a chronicle of events, but a profound exploration of power, identity, and resilience in the medieval world. Her story serves as a singular prism through which to examine the shifting dynamics of medieval queenship, demonstrating how a woman, through sheer force of will and intellect, could transcend the largely restrictive roles prescribed for her sex. Unlike many queens who derived their authority solely through their husbands or sons, Eleanor possessed an inherent, deeply rooted power derived from her independent inheritance of Aquitaine. This vast, wealthy duchy was not a mere dowry, but a sovereign territory she ruled in her own right, affording her a unique leverage that few, if any, other queens of her era could boast. This personal domain remained her ultimate fallback and power base throughout her tumultuous life, allowing her a degree of independence and agency that defined her unique trajectory. Her two marriages, far from being mere passive unions, were themselves profound political acts that reshaped the map of Europe. Her first to Louis VII of France briefly united Aquitaine with the Capetian crown, but her proactive pursuit of an annulment, a truly audacious move for a queen, severed this bond, freeing her to forge a new destiny. Her subsequent, rapid marriage to Henry Plantagenet, just weeks after her annulment, was a calculated geopolitical earthquake. It transformed Henry from a powerful duke into the sovereign of an immense cross-channel empire, fundamentally challenging the established order and creating the enduring Anglo-French rivalry that would define centuries of European history. Eleanor's choices in these pivotal moments were not dictated by male authority, but by her own astute understanding of power and opportunity, demonstrating a strategic mind that matched, and often surpassed, those of the kings she married. Beyond the grand political stage, Eleanor's influence on the everyday lives and social structures of her time was subtly, yet significantly, transformative. Her court, especially in Aquitaine, fostered a relatively more liberal and sophisticated environment than was common in Northern Europe. This extended to the treatment and role of women within courtly society. While still operating within a patriarchal framework, Eleanor's patronage of courtly love, with its emphasis on chivalry, courtesy, and the ennobling influence of women, indirectly elevated the social and intellectual status of noblewomen. Her own example as a literate, politically engaged, and culturally sophisticated woman provided a powerful model, inspiring other aristocratic women to pursue education, engage in patronage, and even wield indirect political influence through their own courts. This cultural shift, fostered by Eleanor, contributed to a gradual but perceptible evolution in gender roles and expectations within the European nobility. Her enduring significance also lies in her legendary reputation, which has transcended historical scholarship to permeate popular culture. Eleanor has been immortalized in literature, film, and television, often portrayed as a compelling, multifaceted figure, a queen of unparalleled beauty, fierce intelligence, and formidable will. While these portrayals often take liberties with historical accuracy, they reflect a deep-seated fascination with a woman who refused to be confined by the limitations of her era. Her story embodies themes of ambition, betrayal, resilience, and personal freedom, making her a perennially relevant and engaging figure. This popular image, while distinct from the historical record, nevertheless serves to keep her story alive, ensuring that her impact on history continues to be explored and debated by new generations. Moreover, Eleanor's life offers invaluable insight into the complex and often brutal realities of medieval dynastic politics. Her struggles with Henry II, particularly the Great Rebellion of 1173 to 1174, laid bare the inherent tensions within composite monarchies where multiple territories, with diverse customs and loyalties, were held together by the personal will of a single ruler. The Plantagenet family itself, with its ambitious, often rebellious sons and its complex power dynamics, became a microcosm of the larger political struggles of the era. Eleanor's role in this familial drama, as a mother who simultaneously nurtured and incited her children, highlights the profound personal stakes involved in medieval power struggles. Her long imprisonment and eventual return to power underscored the fragility and fluidity of power even for the most powerful individuals, yet also demonstrated her extraordinary capacity for survival and resurgence. In her final years, Eleanor solidified her reputation not just as a power broker, but as a wise and revered matriarch. Her active role in securing John's succession and her diplomatic mission to escort Blanche of Castile for her marriage to the future King of France showcased her continued indispensability even as she approached her 80s. She transitioned from a youthful, rebellious queen to a sagacious queen mother, a figure of immense authority and a symbol of continuity for the Plantagenet dynasty. Her death marked the end of an era and the subsequent rapid decline of the continental Angevin Empire under John only further emphasized the profound and lasting impact of her presence. Eleanor of Aquitaine was more than just a historical figure. She was a force of nature, a woman whose life story illuminates the intricate tapestry of medieval Europe, leaving an indelible mark on its politics, culture, and social structures, ensuring her place as one of the most remarkable women in history. Eleanor of Aquitaine's long and extraordinary life, spanning 82 years across the 12th and early 13th centuries, represented a monumental force of nature that irrevocably shaped the destiny of Western Europe. Her biography is not merely a sequence of historical events, but a testament to unparalleled resilience, astute political acumen, and an unyielding will to exert agency in an age fundamentally structured to limit female power. From her inherent authority as the Duchess of Aquitaine, one of the wealthiest and most culturally sophisticated territories in medieval Europe, she wielded influence that transcended the typical roles of queen consort. Her dual queenships, first to the ascetic Louis VII of France, and then to the dynamic and tempestuous Henry II of England, were not accidental unions, but strategic partnerships that dramatically redrew the geopolitical map of the continent. Her audacious annulment from Louis, followed by her swift marriage to Henry, consolidated an empire that dwarfed the Capetian lands, igniting a rivalry that would define Anglo-French relations for centuries and set the stage for the 100 Years' War. Her direct involvement in governance was far beyond ceremonial. As regent for both Henry II and Richard I, she actively managed royal administration, dispensed justice, and maintained order across the vast and often restive Angevin domains. Her sharp intellect and deep understanding of feudal law and local customs made her an indispensable advisor. During Richard's crusade and subsequent captivity, it was Eleanor who held the fractious empire together, thwarted John's treachery, and most famously, orchestrated the colossal effort to raise Richard's ransom, personally traveling across Europe to secure his release. This period solidified her reputation not merely as a formidable queen, but as an indomitable matriarch, dedicated to the survival and prosperity of her dynasty, even in the face of her own long and unjust imprisonment. Culturally, Eleanor's patronage transformed the royal courts of England and Aquitaine into vibrant centers of artistic and intellectual ferment. Her court in Poitiers became synonymous with the flourishing of courtly love, a concept that influenced chivalry, poetry, and social ideals across Europe. She nurtured troubadours and scholars, fostering an environment where vernacular literature and refined manners gained prominence, subtly shifting cultural norms and elevating the status of women within aristocratic circles. Her own cultivation and intellectual curiosity served as a powerful example, demonstrating that a queen could be both a political powerhouse and a beacon of sophisticated culture. This legacy extended through her descendants, who carried her intellectual curiosity and political savvy into other European courts. profoundly influencing the character of successive generations of monarchs. Eleanor's long life allowed her to witness and actively participate in a period of immense transition, the consolidation of royal power, the rise of nascent nation-states, and significant shifts in intellectual and artistic expression. She navigated these complexities with extraordinary skill, often bending the rules of a male-dominated world to her will. Her children and grandchildren, strategically married into various European royal houses, solidified her bloodline as central to the continental power structure, connecting England, France, Castile, Sicily, and the Holy Roman Empire in a vast dynastic web. Even in her final years, well into her 80s, she remained a pivotal figure, securing John's succession and undertaking arduous diplomatic missions, proving her indispensability until her last breath. Her death in 1204, almost immediately preceding the catastrophic loss of Normandy and other key continental territories under King John, underscored just how vital her presence had been. She was the last great pillar of the original Angevin Empire, and without her steadying hand, John's reign rapidly descended into chaos. Eleanor's unique blend of strength, intelligence, and adaptability ensures her place not just as one of the most remarkable women of the Middle Ages, but as one of the most influential figures in all of European history. She remains an enduring symbol of powerful womanhood, a monarch who defied the confines of her time and left an indelible mark on the world. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the extraordinary life of Eleanor of Aquitaine. We hope you've enjoyed learning about her incredible journey. If you did, please remember to like this video, share it with others who might find it fascinating, and subscribe to our channel for more historical explorations. We love hearing your thoughts, so leave a comment below and let us know what historical figure you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next one.